policy at the state and local level. This webinar today is being jointly offered by the partnership and by the Coalition on Human Needs. We are offering it to help you reach out to families to get them to claim the first half of their child tax credit by November 15th. They have a very short window to do this, but fortunately it takes very little for them to do it. We hope you can help as many of them as possible get it. If they register by November 15th for the credit, they should get half their credit in December, and then they'll get the second half when they file taxes in 2022 for this 2021 year. If they don't do it by November 15th, they can still get the full credit by filing next year. But obviously many people really need the money right now and they don't know how to claim it. So we're reaching out to you to help us with this sort of last minute countdown for all those people who don't know they're eligible or leave things to the last minute, as so many of us do, to help them get going. Our presenters today are Julia Beebe and Aline da Fonseca. They are both the Child Tax Credit Outreach Coordinators at the Coalition on Human Needs, and both Deborah Weinstein, who's the Executive Director of the Coalition on Human Needs, and I will also be available to answer questions. And with that, I'm going to mention that we are recording this webinar so that we can share it with people who couldn't make it but still want to know about this. During the webinar, we encourage you to put your questions in the Q&A, which you should see in the bottom of your screen. And then after the presentations, we will answer your questions. But if you put them in as you're going along, we'll know what they are and you won't forget them. I believe that we're also going to take a transcript of the session so that we can share a written version of it for people. If you have technical problems, like you can't hear someone, go ahead and put that in the chat. But for any substantive questions around the content of the webinar, use the Q&A and we will get to them. I'm so glad you're joining us. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Julia and Aline.
Great. Thanks, Deb, and thanks everyone for joining us. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. As Deb was already sharing, this will be a collaboration between the Coalition on Human Needs and the Partnership for America's Children. And the Coalition on Human Needs is a coalition of about 100 organizations across the country that are advocating at the federal level for policies to support families with low income, including the child tax credit. And the Partnership for America's Children is a network of state and local child advocacy groups. And so we're really excited to have these two groups here today. We're going to do a little bit of an overview on the child tax credit, and we'll likely be referring to it as a CTC moving forward. So if you hear that acronym, that's what we're referring to. And are going to talk about how to help families receive it. As Deb was saying, this is a really opportune time to be having this training because we have exactly 10 days before simplified filing portal for getting the CTC closes on November 15th. So we're really excited to have all of you here today to talk about how we can connect families to this benefit. And then Aline will take us through some focus group findings about the CTC that might support your outreach to families, and we'll review common concerns, challenges, and solutions. We have a lot of resources that we'll share, and we just want to say that we'll be sending all these resources out after in an email, so you don't need to feel pressure to be capturing everything as we go. And then we'll have plenty of time for questions. So by now, most of you have likely heard of the CTC and the expanded CTC. The child tax credit isn't new, but it was expanded as part of the American Rescue Plan Act this past March. And its reach is really broad. It's intended, it's projected to help cut the number of children in poverty by more than 40%. And is estimated to lift approximately 1.1 million children above half the poverty line. And we'll likely see greater reductions in poverty among Black children, Latinx children. So what is actually in the expanded CTC? Previously, the child tax credit was $2,000 per child, and that's been increased now. So for children below the age of 6, it's $3,600. And for children between the ages of 6 and 17, it's $3,000. Families can now receive half of the CTC this year, and then the second half in 2022. So what is referred to as the advanced child CTC payments have been being received monthly, but today we're going to talk about how those who haven't been receiving their monthly payments can receive this in a lump sum amount this December. And then everyone will receive the second half of their child tax credit when they file their tax returns next year. One thing to know, and we'll be saying this throughout the training, is that we've learned through focus groups we've held and in conversation that the term advanced payment has caused some confusion and concern as people associate that term with loans or something they have to pay back. We know that many of you may know that, but we just want to encourage you to clarify as you're doing outreach with clients and families that this is not a loan. There's no longer a minimum income requirement. So families with very low earnings or no earnings are eligible for the full credit. And the credit is fully refundable. So families are eligible for the full amount, even if they don't owe anything in taxes. And finally, children 17 and under can qualify. So under the expanded CTC, 17-year-olds are now eligible for this benefit. So we think it's helpful to go through a little bit of an example so we understand what's at play. So if we have a family, an adult and 3 children, a 4-year-old and 2 teenagers who are 13 and 15, if they sign up at Get CTC by November 15th, then we'll orient you all about that. They'll get $4,800 this December. So that represents half of the total amount of the child tax credit they'll receive. So if you wanted to do the math along with me, that would be equal to $1,800, which is half for the 4-year-old, and then $1,500 for each of the teenagers, bringing the total to $4,800. While they'll get that lump sum amount in December, they'll have to file full tax return in next year to receive the second half, which will be another $4,800. In total, bringing it to $9,600 for this family. And as we continue our advocacy, hopefully this will be something they can be getting for many years in the future, at least hopefully for the next year. So this is really a significant amount for families. And we just want to note that while we're focused on the child tax credit today, they may very well be eligible for stimulus payments. They have not yet received the earned income tax credit or other benefits. So who's eligible for the expanded CTC? Children must be 17 and under at the end of 2021. So if a child is under the age of 18, come December 31st of this year, they are entitled to the CTC. Adults may have a social security number or an individual taxpayer identification number, commonly known as an ITIN, and children must have a social security number. Dependents can be an adult's child, including adopted, grandchild, stepchild, younger sibling, step-sibling, half-sibling, or their descendant, or a foster child placed with you by a government agency. One part of how this is designed is that the payment is really intended to go to the adult with whom the child is living most of the year. So even if it's not a parent, if it's an older sibling who's responsible for their younger brother or sister, they would be entitled to this payment. Dependents must have lived with the adult in the US for more than 6 months. So as long as it's 1 day more than half the year, they're entitled to get that benefit. And that doesn't have to be consecutive time. We have learned through questions and other trainings that there are exceptions to this if a child, for example, is in and out of a juvenile detention facility and some other possible exceptions. To qualify, a dependent couldn't have provided for more than half of their own support in 2021, and the child must be considered a dependent for tax filing purposes. And that last one, you don't have to worry about knowing how to discern that. The Get CTC tool will really take you through and help you understand. We know from the Census Bureau's household pulse survey what people have been using the child tax credit on so far. So from early October, we know that 57% of recipients reported at least spending some of the child tax credit on food, 32% on combined school-related items, 30% on clothing, and then lesser amounts on utilities, rent, childcare, although these spendings really vary significantly by the age of the children and by race. And this finding, I think, is quite significant and really underlines the importance of the child tax credit. After the first CTC payment, there was a 30% drop in reports of sometimes or often not having enough to eat in the previous week, and an even greater drop among those with incomes below $35,000. So you can see here that there was a very small reduction in the number of households reporting they don't have enough to eat without children, so those not receiving the CTC, and a much more significant drop from 13.4% to 9.4% among households with children. So we could spend a lot of time talking about the long-term impact. We suspect that many of you in your work already understand that this is really critically important, and we want, given the timing, to spend most of this training on how we can make sure folks are actually getting the payments to which they're entitled. So for many families, they're already receiving these payments automatically. Families should have been automatically receiving monthly CTC payments since July if they filed a 2019 or 2020 tax return, if they've received stimulus payments, or if they use something called the 2020 IRS non-filer tool to receive the stimulus payments. Essentially, if the IRS has their information, it's likely they've already been receiving monthly CTC payments. And they might have received them via direct deposit, through a bank account, a prepaid debit card, or a mobile app, or if the IRS didn't have banking information, by check in the mail. And so for those who have been receiving monthly payments, by December, they'll have received half of the child tax credit to which they're entitled. And the next step is that they'll have to file a full 2021 tax return next year to receive the second half of the credit. Unfortunately, while millions of families are getting the child tax credit automatically, that's not true for many children. And there are an estimated 4 million or more, I've heard estimates much higher than that, of children who are at risk of missing out of the CTC payments. So these kids live with adults who we often refer to as non-filers, who have to proactively take action to be receiving their CTC payments. And to reach these non-filers, that's why we're so excited to have all of you on this call today. And I saw a little bit of some of the registration of different organizations where people were coming from. So places like Head Start and schools and churches and community centers are really the trusted organizations we know will have the most luck in reaching these families to ensure that they sign up for their payments. So the following families must take additional action in order to receive the first half of their CTC. So these are families who have not automatically been receiving monthly payments. These are individuals who didn't file a 2019 or 2020 tax return, or have not been receiving the stimulus payments. So we want to talk about how we can make sure these families get half of their CTC this year in December, in time for the holidays and for the cold winter months. So for those who are not required to file taxes, that's people who earn less than $12,400 if they're a single filer, or less than $24,800 for married couples. They have the option of filing a simplified return on getctc.org/NTL by November 15th. And we'll be putting these links in the chat and also sending them out. So you can certainly capture them now, but you'll see them again. If someone's not sure if they're required to file taxes, GetCTC will ask them some eligibility questions to determine if they should proceed. There may be individuals who are required to file taxes, so those earning more than the filing threshold, or who could potentially claim other tax benefits if they file a full return. So for those individuals, their option would be to file a 2020 tax return. And Aline later will talk a little bit about different free tax assistance options to support these families in filing. GetCTC, which is a tool we'll review momentarily, will ask those who make under the filing threshold if they prefer to file a full return in order to claim all of the relevant tax credits. So people may decide to file full returns if they have substantial earned income still below the threshold, but have made money in the past year. And if they don't need the CTC payment this year, because filing a full return will be significantly slower than using GetCTC. And if they're prepared to file a full tax return, so have all of the information and documents they need to navigate this longer process. Others will continue just by filing a simplified return using their GetCTC portal. And that's a portal that closes in 10 days and really what we'll focus on now. So as we've said many times, but we want to keep saying just to make sure it's very clear, it's not too late for families to get the first half of their CTC this year. And they have until November 15th. If they file by then and everything goes well, they'll receive the first half of their CTC in December in one lump sum payment. To our example family at the beginning of the presentation, that means they would receive a direct deposit or check for $4,800 in December. And they can do so using the simplified IRS-approved, cell phone-friendly filing tool. Again, here are the links. In English, getctc.org/NTL, national. And then in Spanish, it's getctc.org/ES/NTL. So we'll be putting those in the chat. And GetCTC has a really great demo video, which I've seen and made the process much clearer for me. And if you can only watch one thing, I would recommend kind of sharing this with people who want to learn more because it's just 6.5 minutes. So we're going to watch the video, which will show us how you can go ahead and support a family in returning and filing a simplified return on GetCTC. So I'm going to share this here, and I'll just ask my co-host if you don't hear it well, if you can just interrupt me immediately because I want to make sure it's working.
This video will show you how to use Code for America's simplified tax filing portal, GetCTC. GetCTC is a new tool that allows families without a tax filing obligation to file a simplified 2020 tax return to access the new expanded child tax credit and any of the 3 stimulus payments. GetCTC e-files a simplified return directly with the IRS. It's mobile-friendly, available in English and Spanish, and chat assistance is available at any point in the process. People without children can use it too, just to access stimulus payments. First, GetCTC will go through a few steps to confirm that it's the right tool for me. The tool will check first that I'm allowed by the IRS to do simplified filing, since those with higher incomes are required to file a full return. GetCTC will then warn me that I could get even more money by filing a full return, since I can't get the EITC or state credits from this tool. Those who choose this option are sent to getyourrefund.org, which allows families to file full tax returns through VITA services. For now, I'll opt to continue with this tool. Next, GetCTC will check whether I filed a 2020 return this year already. If I already submitted a return, the IRS would reject a new one I file through this tool. And the tool will check if I filed a 2019 return. If I did, the tool would confirm whether I needed to file this new return at all, and if so, it would collect my 2019 adjusted gross income, which the IRS requires from filers for authentication purposes. In this case, I'll say that I didn't file last year. Finally, GetCTC will confirm I lived in the United States last year, and it will confirm that no one can claim me as a dependent, since that would make me ineligible for CTC and stimulus payments. In the next section, GetCTC asks for some basic information about me. I'll enter my name, date of birth, and social security number. Note that I can also enter an ITIN. As required by the IRS, GetCTC asks for my phone number. It also asks if I was a member of the armed forces in 2020, since that could impact the amount of my recovery rebate credit. GetCTC does not require users to create an account and does not require them to have an email address. Users simply have to sign up using their phone or their email. In this case, I'll choose to sign up by phone. GetCTC will send me a 6-digit code that I must enter to confirm that phone number is indeed mine. For purposes of this demo, I'll enter a fake code on this page. In the next section, if I'm married, GetCTC will collect needed information about my spouse. I'll enter my spouse's name, date of birth, and social security number, or ITIN. After I enter my spouse's information, GetCTC will display what I entered to confirm it's right. In the next section, GetCTC allows me to list my 2020 dependents. Rather than assume I've read all the rules, GetCTC asks me all the questions I need to answer to make sure I can claim my dependents. Keep in mind that the pages users see in this section very much depend on the answers they provide. First, I'll enter my dependent's basic information: name, date of birth, and relationship to me. GetCTC will ask a couple of other specific scenarios to confirm eligibility in certain cases. Next, GetCTC will ask me to confirm a few more criteria. If at any point my dependent doesn't meet the main criterion, GetCTC will ask whether one or more valid exceptions apply. Once it is clear that I can claim this dependent, GetCTC will ask for their social security number or adoption taxpayer identification number. Behind the scenes, GetCTC will determine which credits my dependent is eligible for. Finally, GetCTC will show me a list of my dependents, including whether they are eligible for CTC or only for stimulus payments. I can keep repeating this process until all my dependents are recorded. For now, I'll say I only have one dependent. In the next section, GetCTC will help me claim any stimulus payments I missed out on. While the IRS will calculate and issue the third stimulus payment automatically using the information on this return, the IRS requires families to calculate for themselves any amount of the first 2 payments they missed out on and report that amount directly on their return as the recovery rebate credit. GetCTC makes this process easier by calculating how much families should have received. If I got this amount, I would skip this section. Instead, I'll say I received less than this amount and I have missing stimulus to claim. GetCTC will then help me figure out how much I received in the first 2 payments, including providing some tips about where to find the information. I'll say in this case that I received $1,200 in the first payment and that I didn't receive any of the second payment. GetCTC will then let me review the amount I'm claiming and confirm that I would like to claim it. Finally, GetCTC will collect my payment information and allow me to review and submit my return. I can select direct deposit or a mailed check. In this case, I'll select direct deposit. GetCTC asks me to confirm that my name is on the bank account so the payment is not rejected. I'll provide my routing number and my account number. And finally, we'll have the chance to confirm my information. The IRS also requires that I provide my mailing address. GetCTC allows me to enter identity protection pins for anyone in my family who has one, and provides more information about what an IP pin is. I'll say that no one in my family has one. Now, I can review all the information I've submitted and go back to edit anything that's wrong. On this page, as required by the IRS, I set a 5-digit PIN that I can use to authenticate when I file next year. Finally, I'll agree to the legalese on the last page, and I'll file. Just like that, I've filed my simplified return. GetCTC will alert me within a couple days whether my return has been accepted or rejected by the IRS. You can find GetCTC at getctc.org. For more resources about the CTC and stimulus payments, visit getctc.org/navigators.
Great. Hopefully you can all be seeing my slides still. Do you all see my presentation okay? Okay, great. It's always strange giving a webinar because I can't see anyone's reactions. So hopefully everyone feels comfortable putting many questions, reflections in the chat. We would love to hear from you all. Once someone has filed on the GetCTC portal, they will receive the first half of the CTC this December. but that's not all they have to do to receive the rest of the child tax credit. So come January, they'll be required to file a full 2021 tax return in order to receive the second half of the CTC. And we can go ahead and put both that demo video and the link here in the chat momentarily. But if people go to getyourrefund.org, which is the same kind of general website as Get CTC, they'll be able to be alerted when a free tax assistance site, known as a VITA free tax assistance site, opens in early 2022. We know that perhaps some of you are thinking, this is great, and I hope I can connect families before the 15th, but what happens if someone misses that deadline? The good news is that they can still claim their full child tax credit. They'll just have to wait until next year. We're really encouraging people to use Get CTC before the 15th because it's so simple and it means people can get cash this year. But we know that some might miss that and really want to make sure folks know what to do if they don't get it in time by November 15th. So for those who don't receive the first half this year, they will receive it when they get their tax refund in 2022. As with those who need to file full tax returns for the second half, they can sign up at getyourrefund.org. They'll put in their information, and when a free tax assistance site opens near them in January, they'll be alerted and can get support filling out their tax return. We'll also make sure to email out this follow-up. It's just a simple flyer, and I'm sure some of you can do very kind of exciting things with the graphics, but this is sort of basic information if you want to let people know where they can go for assistance or who they can contact, and it includes all of the documents and information people will need to fill out a return on Get CTC. So they, to file for the CTC on Get CTC. So the list of info they'll need is their own full name, date of birth, social security number or ITIN. They'll need the full name, dates of birth, social security numbers, or adoption taxpayer IDs for their children. They'll need a phone number or email. They don't need both, and a mailing address, and then optionally a bank info with their routing number and account number. So I think that's it for this first part. Please do start putting in questions. We'll make sure to get to them. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and then Aline will take it from here.
Great, thank you, Julia. Let me share my screen. Okay, so hi everyone. I'm going to start off and talking about some of the lessons we've learned from focus groups that have been conducted recently. We've conducted a total of 6 so far. I think we have 2 more to go. And these are some things that we find important to highlight. And as you'll see, they parallel with a lot of the things that Julia talked about. And in the coming slides, I'm going to answer some of these and give resources and even some language that you can use when talking to clients about these common questions. So among people who haven't yet filed, many are afraid that if they get the advanced CTC payment, they'll have to just pay it back. Some are concerned that they may owe back taxes to the IRS. People often thought the CTC was only for people who are working. If they have questions about it, they can't get through the IRS, or they also want in-person help. For immigrant non-filers, they want to be able to consult immigration lawyers before filing. And also they responded well to language that emphasized the help of the CTC provided for the whole family, as opposed to discussions or points around long-term benefits to children. They're cautious about overpromising, but also language that would speak of the CTC being able to improve their ability to parent their children or provide a certain type of life for their children. They didn't respond to as well either, because I mean, it's kind of obvious in that way that people would be defensive about their ability to parent depending on how much money they have. So emphasizing language that really talks about what the CTC does for the whole of the family and not just parenting was responded to better. So the first concern or hesitancy that we can address is, do they need to have an income? And on all these slides, you're going to see a link to the IRS FAQ. We're also going to provide an additional link that goes directly to the page with all the FAQs. But the direct answer from the IRS is no. Even if you have zero in income, you can receive advanced child tax credit payments if you are eligible. And I also want to note here that using IRS information, FAQs, to answer clients' questions, it was also found in the focus group that people found the IRS to be a trusted source that they could get information from. So it's one of the reasons we're including that here as well. The next concern and hesitancy was if someone had not filed or owed the IRS. So maybe they hadn't filed because they were under the filing threshold, or they did owe money. So this here is actually language that was used that landed well, that was responded to well, and was really clear. And it says, if you know that you owe back taxes or other debt, you should still file for the child tax credit. The IRS wants to and will work with you. You may be able to work out a payment plan or settle your debt for a lower amount. When you file your 2021 tax return in 2022 to claim the CTC, your tax refund may be reduced to pay for any taxes you owe and other federal or state debts. Paying that off can set you up to receive your full refund in future years. And then the link below is are the questions and answers on the IRS FAQ. And essentially here, the message is that if somebody does owe money, it can be an opportunity that the CTC can offset those payments, meaning that it would be used to pay off what they owe, but filing can then set it up so that in the future, when they file again, they'll get the full child tax credit. Another concern is if the CTC will impact other benefits such as SNAP, Medicaid. This is obviously particularly important in communities with lower income, because often they are accessing these other benefits as well. So this is IRS language. It comes directly from this link as well. And the answer is that no, the advanced child tax credit payments cannot be counted as income when determining if you or anyone else is eligible for benefits or assistance, or how much you or anyone else can receive under any federal program or under any state or local program financed in whole or in part with federal funds. The next one is, will families have to pay back CTC payments? Julia addressed this earlier as well, and the importance of emphasizing that the CTC is not alone. Here again, we have language that was used in the focus groups that has been tested and landed well. And it says, there are protections in place so you won't have to pay this money back if your 2021 income is less than $40,000 or $60,000 for married couples. This means that people who earn less than these amounts will not have to pay back advanced CTC payments if the IRS sends them based on past tax information that is no longer correct. The next question or concern is centered on immigration. So first I'll address, does receiving the CTC have public charge ramifications? Here is the IRS languaging around that as well, and the answer is no. Under current law, receiving the child tax credit or other federal tax credits that you are eligible for will not affect your immigration status, your ability to get a green card, or your future eligibility for immigration benefits. Use of federal tax credits is not considered for purposes of a public charge determination by U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. We also are including, so the question being also, how do you get an ITIN? So for anyone who is in the immigration processes, doesn't have a social security number, wants to file and needs to get an ITIN, I'm going to have some resources around that specifically in a couple of slides, but we're also including here a link on how to actually file with file your taxes with an ITIN. So these are resources that we've found to be really important and useful in navigating the system and also referring clients out to parts of the processes that perhaps need to have additional help. Most importantly, the VITA sites. So the link that's included here is where you can put in your zip code and find the nearest VITA sites that are available. I think it was mentioned earlier that a lot of them are not open right now. They won't be reopening till January, till tax season. But we did find for example, in New York, they actually do have some VITA sites that are open. So perhaps if you're in more of a metropolitan area, you might actually be able to find current VITA sites that are open and assisting people. We have a link to the IRS assistance sites. So these sites do not actually help with filing actual tax returns. They're really there to answer questions. And I think also if you need certain forms, things like that, but they can assist with ITIN number applications. And in particular, this might be useful because not all VITA sites are actually have somebody on hand to assist with ITIN applications. From conversations that we've been having, it can be kind of specific to the area. So an IRS site can help complete the ITIN application, keeping in mind that the actual ITIN application does have to be submitted with a tax return. It can't just be mailed in separately. But it is a useful resource because first, if you speak to somebody in the next 10 days who wants to apply for the child tax credit but doesn't have an ITIN, they actually won't be able to meet the filing deadline of the 15th because the ITIN applications are taking at least 2 months. But they can start the process by going to one of these sites, completing the paperwork, having their documents verified, and then they can bring that to a VITA site and complete the tax returns in early 2022. We also have an IRS CTC hotline that people can call with any questions or if they need assistance. Again, here's the link as well to tax filing using an ITIN. And we've also included this list of pro bono legal services across the country. I think you can select by state and they'll give you a list of who's available and what they serve. And how they can help with pro bono legal services. And we also are sharing this out as a call to action, really essentially because we can't let the new CTC expire after just 1 year. So we're asking people to reach out to their senators. I don't know, I know there might be an update on representatives because this House was scheduled to debate and vote on it today. So I don't know if one of the devs have any updates on that in particular, but phone numbers to reach out to your senators are included at the bottom of this page, as well as a link to our CHN page where you can click on take action and submit an email to your Congress member or email to Congress. And here are more additional resources. Again, all of this will be in a follow-up email as well as these slides, but you can see the IRS FAQ is here, the demo video. We have a Google Doc resource guide that we're constantly updating and adding resources in around the CTC that's available to you for you to access. The Get CTC website in English and Spanish and lots more. And these are two outreach opportunities that that we'd like to share with you as well that are available before the 15th. The first is a guide to working with benefits agencies to send text messages to their beneficiaries, pointing out to them to get CTC before November 15th. And the second is the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. Child Tax Credit Text Bank on Wednesday, November 10th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. So volunteers will be trained on how to text parents and who may still need to sign up for the CTC. Registration link is there as well. And how are we available to help? Well, as you've noticed we have lots of resources that we can share, and we're willing to share, and we're happy to share with everybody. We can connect you to other groups that are doing complementary work, materials you can use, training tax experts. We can help you decide what activities you can do, also help with info to target and outreach most effectively in the communities that you serve, and in general, keep you informed of messaging research like we have with our focus groups. And if you're interested, you're also welcome to sign up for our child tax credit email list. This will keep you up to date on any new occurrences, information, updates on what's going on with the CTC, and you can sign up at this link as well. Okay, thank you, everybody, and we'll open up to questions.
Maybe we can try to go in the order that they were received. So I think one in the chat was, I think we've addressed this, but if the parent does not work, can they still qualify for the credits? And the answer is yes. There's no income minimum requirement. And then I believe there was a question in the Q&A, Deb Stein, that you were going to address. Are undocumented parents eligible for the CTC?
Yeah, can you hear me? I may be having a muting problem here.
We hear you.
Great. So we have a question in the Q&A about the eligibility of undocumented parents. And for the 2021 tax year, the children must have a Social Security number, which, usually is a kid who is a citizen, but it might be a kid with a green card. The parents can be undocumented, but they do need to have an ITIN, which is the alternative number that the IRS gives people who don't have Social Security numbers so they can comply with the law by filing their taxes. There are millions of people in this country who file their taxes every year with ITINs, and they do so safely. And, unless there's, the IRS does not turn them over to the immigration authorities unless there's a particular criminal charge. So this is something that a lot of undocumented immigrants do on a regular basis, and they're familiar with it. If they have an ITINs number, they can go ahead and use getctc.org, and they can claim on behalf of their citizen or green card children. But if they don't have an ITINs number, as I think Julia explained, they're going to have to get one. And to do that, they have to file a paper return and attach a ITINs request with key documentation. And that documentation has to be authorized. So it has to be done at a particular kind of IRS site. There are a lot of people who have ITINs, but who didn't file their taxes in the last couple of years because they just didn't have work income. So you should certainly be reaching out to those people. But if they don't have an ITIN, you can still encourage them to claim their full CTC by filing a full tax return in 2022 for the 2021 year. So if anyone has any follow-up questions to that, we'd be delighted to answer them.
Then I think there's another chat message. Will you have messaging after November 15th for filing 2022 taxes to get the CTC? That's a great question. Yes, and it's something we're working on. And if any of you have experience working with communities and have suggestions, we would certainly love to hear from you after the training. But there are a lot of groups thinking about how to make sure families claim either the second half or the full amount after November 15th. And for now, I think making sure people sign up at Get Your Refund so that they know when there's a tax assistance site open is a really good starting point. But I don't know, Aline or Deb, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, we are working with Lake Research to do the focus groups that Aline mentioned. And when those focus groups are completed, Lake Research will put out a messaging memo about our findings, and we will work with a firm called GMB, which is creating a lot of outreach tools to produce outreach materials for the filing in 2022 that include the messaging that we've developed. If you want to have access to all of those, what we suggest you do is sign up for our outreach listserv, and that is in the slides that Aline was showing. And everybody who registered for this webinar will get both the recording and the slides. So you can just go through the slides and pull off. It's a bit.ly link and sign up, and you'll get our outreach materials as they become available. We will also undoubtedly have more information about how people can file for their full tax return. There are efforts to make it as easy as possible that are happening right now. And so as those opportunities develop, we'll get information out on that same outreach listserv. So there will definitely be messaging materials about how to claim the rest of the CTC or the full CTC next year, but we really want as many people as possible to be able to get the first half of their credit this year, because we know they need the money right now. We do have another question in the chat, which is if parents have 50-50 joint custody, which parent would receive the child tax credit money? So the rule is it's whoever the child lived with for 6 months and 1 day or more. And it doesn't have to be consecutive, but that 6 months and a day all has to be in the calendar year of 2021. If you've really split it equally and the parents are on reasonably amicable terms, they probably should just talk to each other and decide who should claim it. If one parent claims it and the other one believes that they're really the person who should have gotten it, they won't get the advanced CTC through getctc.org, but they can file a return claiming it in 2022, and then the IRS will do a fact finding to figure out which parent really had the child for 6 months and a day and gets the child tax credit. And if the IRS finds that, you know, the parent who claimed the child originally was not in fact the person who the child was living with for more than 6 months, the other parent, the one the child did live with, will get the full credit, and then it will be between the IRS and the parent who inappropriately claimed the child to work out if there's a repayment. And as we mentioned before, if the parent's income is below a certain amount, then there won't be a repayment issue, even if they inaccurately claimed the child.
One thing I would just add to that is what's happened any number of times in this go-round. The IRS has the information about who claimed the child in the prior year's tax forms. So in situations where parents have agreed to alternate who claims the child, in this instance, whoever claimed the child the prior year, that's the one who's been getting the advance payments. And there unfortunately is not a quick way of changing that. That has to wait for the parent, as Debbie just said, to file the return after January. And then if they establish that they were the one who had the child living with them for more than 6 months, then they can receive the credit with the protections that Debbie just mentioned. If the family's low enough income, the other parent doesn't lose money. But so that's a complication that people are living with. And unfortunately, they do have to wait until after January to resolve that.
So if you have more questions, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A. And while we're waiting.
I just saw one comment. It said, is the information available in Spanish? Also, is the Get CTC website available in Spanish? So I just put in the chat, Get CTC is in English and Spanish. So I put in the chat the Spanish link, although also if you go to the main one and click Spanish, you'll get there. And then our partners at Unidos US, along with some other partner organizations, have a webinar in Spanish intended for folks who are working with Spanish speakers. And they actually do a version of the Get CTC demo in Spanish. So definitely recommend clicking that as well and checking it out.
Okay, so I'm having a little problem on my end seeing the chat. I'm going to ask Debbie Weinstein to close us out. Weinstein, sorry.
Oh, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I just got it. First, let's make sure this is there's a little artificiality here because you can't just pipe up, but I do want to leave room for people to ask other questions if they have them. You know, we'll see them whether you've used the chat or the Q&A. We're wanting to make it easy for you, so don't hesitate. I do want to emphasize, as you saw from looking at that video, it's pretty easy to go through the getctc.org tool. And the one thing that's helpful to do is to remind people the information they need. They don't need documents, but they do need, you know, the legal name of the children and their full birth dates. And that might be easy for a parent, but perhaps a grandparent, if they're the ones caring for a child, might not remember the year of the birth, perhaps. So just having that all together and telling people ahead of time, that's what they'll need to have all together. Of course, having the checking account information. If they have a checking account, they don't have to. You know, it takes a little doing to make sure they have that in front of them. But you can go through this with them. They can use their cell phone. And as you just heard, it's available in English and Spanish. It's not hard, and it's a lot of money. So we hope that you will reach out. We hope you'll reach out through some of the activities that we had listed on the slides. And certainly we do want to underscore that this is phase one. We'd like families to get the money in December if we can find them and sign them up. But they haven't lost their opportunity to get this money, and we will all be working very hard to provide you with the tools and resources so that we can direct people to the tax filing help and they can get it in January and beyond. The one final thing I'll say, I've had one eye on the other computer. We still don't have a House vote on continuing the child tax credit, which we were really hopeful would be happening today. So we strongly urge you to take a look at that. And we want this not only to be available to families for the 1 year, of course, but to continue. So we've got a fight ahead of us for that too. So I don't know, let's see, anybody?
We have one more question in the chat. And that
Okay.
is, what about for refugees? Would they be considered for CTC?
I think if the parent has the ITIN, then I think they could be. They definitely don't have to be citizens. So as long as they have that individual taxpayer identification number, I think they could qualify.
They would still have to have a child with a social security
Yes,
number.
thank you.
And that may change next year. So one of the things is if you're counseling families who are not eligible this year, make sure they know that it could change next year and they should check back later for that. But for the child tax credit for this year, which is also the one they have to file a tax return for next year, the child has to have that social security number.
That's
the
great.
parent can have either the social security number or an ITIN. And I actually think that a refugee may actually have a social security number and not just an ITIN, but I'm not sure about that. But if they have a social security number, it's even easier. They can claim it even with an ITIN so long as the child has the social security number.
Right. And so it obviously took two Debs to answer that one. But that's right. I mean, depending on the timing of their arrival and paperwork, it seems possible that the child wouldn't have the social security number, but that is one where it would be best to consult with some of the additional resources we have in the materials. I don't see other questions. We really do hope that if you think of questions.
I think there is another question now.
Oh,
this is good. The longer we talk, the more people.
Yeah, we're giving you time to think of it. It's funny that I can't seem to see it right here.
So it says, it's actually a question we've gotten a few times. So it's one we should start addressing in the training. If a child is born this year, are they eligible to receive the CTC? So yes, they are. However, they won't be able to claim the advance payments. If you have a child who was born in 2021, you'll have to claim them in your 2021 tax return, which you'll file next year. And if you're working with a family who has multiple children, they could claim the older kids and then would need to claim for the other child come 2022.
Good answer.
Any other final questions? We'll give it another moment. We put it in the chat too, but just when we were talking around, I think there had been a couple of questions around immigration status and that also DACA, people with DACA, both as dependents or as parents, would be eligible for claiming the CTC as well. Okay. Well, I guess if there are no final questions, I know we'll be sending out a follow-up email, and so definitely don't hesitate to respond to that with any questions or if you need any additional resources. But otherwise, I think we can go ahead and close out.
Right. Thank you very much for everyone's attention on this. We really hope that you can use these materials to reach out to families that you work with or know and help them get this money. We will be back in touch. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.